All right, Treasury Talent community, welcome back to another live discussion. We've got a great guest today and a great topic. Welcome with me today, Frank Melaccio. He's going to be our guest. He's the Vice President and Treasurer of Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey. And we're going to tap into Frank's expertise today about how a good Treasury team can show the ROI it brings to an organization. Frank, thank you so much for joining us, crazy fools, today on our show.
Great. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Frank, I'm going to kick things off and welcome back again. For all of you listeners who don't know, Frank's already been on my podcast. So if you want to know a little bit more about his background and some insights that he's already shared with us, then please jump onto the podcast. And had a great interview with Frank. And ironically, we were joking beforehand, Frank, that the last time we actually caught up with people was when we were in New York, literally just as COVID was hitting. And we had a beer with Frank at the Ritz, I think it was. So yeah, I just wanted to start off today, Frank, by just asking, you've worked across banking, consulting with PwC, and now you're in insurance. How have you found that your experiences across those multiple industries have benefited you in your current role?
I think, since the topic today is really talking about ROI and how to build it into Treasury, I think having some of that, viewpoint of different industries is really helpful because everybody looks at it differently, right? So, I think in banking, one of the things in banking is, everything is very oriented to the bottom line, right? You have to get things done, results focused, and they're publicly traded companies. So that brings, a certain level of expectation in delivering financial performance. And then when you're working in consulting, the nice thing about consulting is you don't actually get to execute on things as much, but you get to hear about what everybody else is doing. And then that kind of provides you a lot of background knowledge. So it's no mystery to me why a lot of people kind of start in consulting and then wind up in other industries, because it gives you a lot of background. And then insurance is interesting as well because it's like a financial services. In a way, it is financial services in terms of banking, but it's a different lens and has different liabilities associated with managing it. So, very different industries, the three, but, each time I went to a different industry, I've learned a lot. And then, I would just say having multiple industry experience, in my opinion, is a plus. Some people like pigeonhole people into industries, but I think, having more breadth just shows that you can change and you're agile. So that's my take.
Oh, we didn't pay you to say that, but thank you for saying it because that's the conversation that we have all the time. So not only that, you have your professional life and you like to keep yourself busy. So you're an adjunct professor at Hofstra. What's that experience been like and how has that benefited you in the corporate world too?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So probably 8 years ago or so, I was working in structured finance over at PwC doing consulting roles. And one of the professors that when I got my MBA reached out, do you want to teach a class over there? And I said, you know what, I always like teaching. I like the academic, I like the theoretical world. It's like really something I enjoy. And I started doing it. And what's been helpful to me is, a lot of times you learn something in school and then you'll forget it, right? I mean, there's an element of just day-to-day doing what you need to do. And it requires me to be fresh because I'm teaching graduate kids. So, I need to really be, so when I'm talking about Black-Scholes modeling, or if I'm talking about binomial trees, I'm teaching at a graduate level, I better know this. So, it really requires you to stay on top of, the cutting edge academic literature that's coming out. So that's been really helpful. But then also, I learned something from my students as a result, and, they ask really good questions. And a lot of times, they're looking at things through a different lens than I would have. And they ask really good questions. So, I give, but I also get back. So, I think there's a lot of advantage. So I encourage anybody that's interested in doing it to certainly look for opportunities.
That's awesome. And I think, for us, we think about, you've got to, obviously you're sharpening the saw, so to speak, in terms of presentation. I think that's a good segue into our topic for today. So all of us here are biased. We completely get the value that Treasury brings to an organization. But as a Treasury leader, why would you say it's important to be able to illustrate that value?
Treasury really has a direct impact on the bottom line. And, there's a lot of what we do day in and day out. And, I think about, whether it's cash management activities, hedging activities, there's a variety of things on the spectrum that are really impacting the bottom line. And, one of the things that, sales parts of the organization are really good at is articulating their value. And as financial professionals, we do a terrible job because we're not salespeople, right? We want to, I used to joke around all the time. My job would be so much easier if I could just get a spreadsheet and everybody would leave me alone, right? But, unfortunately, it's like we have to interact and you have to be your own advocate. I mean, that's just corporate America. And I've worked at a couple of different companies and everyone's different, but they all have that same, there's a culture and there's a political reality of things. And if you're not advocating on your behalf, you're not going to be successful. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So I think it's a critical skill to learn. I think it's a critical skill that we need to do as financial professionals if we want to advance ourselves and our departments.
I think I totally agree, Frank. And the argument I've had, not argument, the discussion I've had a number of times with CFOs when we're recruiting a treasurer role is, if we're talking about haggling over a few $1,000s on a salary, we're having the wrong conversation, because one transaction, one deal will pay for the whole team if you get a really good person. So
right.
What are your thoughts on that in terms of, what I see and what I hear, again, I've never done your job, is, a good treasurer, save one bip or 2 bips on something, all of a sudden you've paid for the whole team.
That's exactly it. So I've done a couple of things throughout my career that I think have been helpful. And the first thing I would say is, if you're a manager and you don't have a dashboard, you're probably not managing effectively, right? Because, there's just so much going on, you can't keep track of everything. And, you also don't want to micromanage. If you know every single thing that's going on in your organization, then you're not focusing on strategy and some of the larger execution that you need to do. So, if you're really going to be successful, empower your people to take on tasks that they can manage and create a dashboard. But when you create that dashboard, make sure that the dashboard's not, oh, I'm getting it done, green light, yellow light, red light. But there should be, I have on my dashboards, value added, right? Impact. And it needs to be a dollar amount, right? So we made this decision, X. Here was the value that was derived, Y. And actually have, an Excel model behind that shows, okay, this is what we did. So I can give you kind of like an example of how treasurers can think about things. And this is one thing that I'm not sure a lot of organizations really think about, or treasury departments do, but I also manage, I'm responsible for our investment portfolio as well. And when we run our investment portfolio, whether we internally manage the assets, which we do, we trade a significant portion, or we send them to externally managed accounts at BlackRock or some of the other investment managers, we have benchmarks, right? Are we beating the benchmark? Are we adding value? Are we not? So if you think about a general corporation, if you're running a derivatives book and you're doing hedging, okay, set a benchmark for how you're transacting and performing relative to whatever that artificial benchmark might be. It's a good way to show your value, right? If you have good relationships on the street and you can execute better than maybe what the benchmark would indicate, there's a lot of value there, right? But if you're reporting to a CFO that is an accountant that doesn't really appreciate the nuances of how the market works, that value is going to get completely lost. And if you're not advocating it for, and you're not tracking it, no one's going to notice that. If you're doing a credit agreement, we're negotiating a credit agreement. And when we were working through, alternate lines of borrowing, how do we want to have our capital structure look like? There's a real difference in the cost of borrowing. You talk about billions of dollars in borrowing, depending on your company, millions to billions, and to your point, Simon, every bit makes a difference. So if you're not tracking that, this is the decision I made, and you don't have a way of communicating that, then you're going to lose the value. So, one of the things we have in my organization, we have a CEO dashboard, and there's treasury. So I use my treasury dashboard, and then I take out the real, positive value things that we have on there, and I use that to communicate on the CEO dashboard, and that's how I demonstrate that value. But if you're not tracking that value is completely getting lost. And, and then when it's time for cuts, no one's going to understand it. But I can guarantee you the sales part of your organization is, hey, we just sold this book of business. Now that book of business may be losing money, right? But they're not going to tell you that, right? They're just going to say, I sold this and generate X dollars of revenue, right? We don't do that in treasury, right? We need to do a better job. So that's, that's kind of how I think about things from a dashboard perspective. I think it's really important. What you don't measure, you don't manage. And that's why measurement is really important.
And do you include your leadership or your executive team in those KPIs or in those benchmarks that you're setting? Are you making sure that it's agreed upon so that you can actually set the expectation of, all right, well, this is what good would look like. This is what great looks like, so that when you're hitting great, it's not just like, oh yeah, Frank did his job.
Right, exactly. So what we do is, you're completely right. I always say all the time, and I set up these dashboards, there's the value delivered. So what do we think the value would be? And let's agree that it's achievable, right? But then it's also, I'm big on this. I don't like giving people deadlines, right? So I'll say, give me the date you're going to get it done by, but whatever date you give me, I want it done by that date. I don't want to hear any excuses after the fact, right? So someone will come back to me and say, oh, well, I'm going to have it done by this date. And I'll look at it and say, I'm not giving you the date, right? You come up with a date. That seems like an aggressive date. So if this is like a poker game, maybe you want to like give your best offer, a date that's really far out, and see if I'll take it, right? Because maybe you get a big win. This thing's only going to take you a month, but you said it's going to take 6 months. So you just built in 5-month buffer. And if I say, okay, you're good to go, why would you give your best offer to go with, right? So it's, negotiation. And, I think that's important. So it's like, agree on what you're going to achieve on the onset of this. And once you have that, then you can make sure that you're accountable, right? Because accountability is a key function. You can't do it all, and you need to hold people accountable. And a good way of doing that is making sure that, those goals are designed that are achievable, but also they need to be agreed. Because what's going to happen at the end of the day, if you don't agree to them at the beginning, then when they're not achieved, which they have probably a high likelihood of not being achieved, that wasn't discussed at the beginning, is, oh, well, we couldn't do it because X, Y, and Z, and then you'll never get the value out of the organization. So, I think that's really a critical function and a part of the discussion to drive that value at the onset.
So that's with your team, but how do you create that alignment with your leader and the rest of the executive team, and why has that been important? That's not.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I think, well, it depends. It's very hard, right? So I've had a number of different, bosses in my career, right? And every time I've had a different boss, they've all been very different. And, I've gone from having bosses that really, are from Wall Street and get it, to, traditional accountants that everything is controllership, and if you're not controllership, you're not really finance, right? So and we all know that, right? Because if you've been in Treasury long enough, I mean, this is a very special niche. A lot of people don't understand what we do, especially if you weren't on the banking side of things, right? You don't know what the difference is between a demand deposit account and a ZBA, right? I mean, it's like, it's all the same. And, so you got to kind of look at your boss, say, okay, what's the area of expertise and what's the understanding? And then, I think that all Treasury professionals should take a sales course, right? Because then it's trying to figure out, okay, this person who I'm reporting to, they really care about this, right? So if you're focused on, if you have a boss that's a true accountant, right, and only cares about the numbers, a couple things you want to do. You want to make sure that you have a really good relationship with controllership, because your CFO values controllership, right? So if the controller is going in every day, those Treasury people don't know what they're doing. They can't reconcile their accounts. They can't balance the book. There's all these suspense items. No matter how much value you bring to the table, there's just going to be this notion that, you can't deliver and your team doesn't know what they're doing. So, figure out what makes your boss tick, and make sure that you do that really, really well. I mean, that should be done at 110%. And then once you do that really well, the conversations going forward won't be about what you're not doing or what the team's getting wrong, or even if you're not doing it wrong, right? Perception is reality. So, if you think you're doing it right and you think the other group doesn't know what they're doing, but that other group has more political capital than you do, right? No matter how right you are, you're going to lose that battle. So it's much easier to work with that team and just figure out a way to make things work as a team. And then now that you're not going to have any of that negative energy that's preventing you from moving forward, then you can say, I'm going to turn around. Now let me focus on the value proposition. So you're not unhappy with me that I'm not doing the things that are really important to you. Now, not only am I doing those things well that you really, don't want me to mess up, we're doing these things that are adding value to the bottom line really well. And I think if you do those two things together, that's where you can kind of really get the executive team, in focus. And the other thing is, don't just do what's asked of you. I think this is a classic problem. Listen, we're all guilty of it, right? We want to do what we're comfortable with. And, what happens is it's like, all right, this is my job. My job is to do, do the account reconciliations every day. Or, I'm in charge of hedging policy and I'm making sure that, our currencies are always in line and we're, managing to our derivatives use policy and everything's in line. But we don't step away from that. We say, how am I going to bring value to the organization? And that's the next leg, I think, of Treasury is that, from the executive team, do things that nobody's asking of you that are going to bring value. So step out on a limb and say, hey, listen, here I think is an opportunity. It's not going to cost you any money. That's always important, right? Especially with the CFO. But you know what? We've been able to automate a couple of things by using bots. And now we got some time. We're going to focus on value-added work, and here's what we can do, and then do it and deliver it. And I think that's how you get the trust of the executive team, by going the extra mile.
So follow up real quick. I know I could see Simon had to jump in there quick. When you are going to cost the company money, for instance, a head count or, perhaps an implementation of a TMS or an upgrade to a TMS, any tips or tricks around how to pitch that?
Yeah, I think it's really critical. So one of the things that I've really been focusing on in Treasury is we got to get away from just doing the manual processes, and we got to go toward the value add. So one of the things that we created on my team is we created a Treasury Analytics function. The Treasury Analytics function, we have an individual, she's great. She's working on looking at the balance sheet, working with the accounting team, understanding our working capital position, and looking for value that we're not finding because it's so buried into our financial statements that we're trying to figure out how to generate it. So, when you're trying to add headcount, the first thing I always say is all the stuff that's easy, automate that as much as possible. Make it as efficient as possible. Because sometimes, and this is what I always say to do, before I even add headcount, I need to make sure that I'm at maximum efficiency. Because if I'm not at maximum efficiency and I don't have the best talent on my team, my boss is going to say, listen, I'm not giving you more people because you don't have the right talent set, right? If you don't have the right talent set, then I'm just going to give you money to throw extra bodies and we don't actually get a better result. Whereas if I get the right amount of people at the right level of talent, and now I'm getting that value, now I can't say, well, this person doesn't do enough. You've already automated that. Then you can start showing the value add. And I think that's how you get the buy-in. And then very simply put, if you want to make a good point, once you have the right team, you could do that ROI analysis and say, hey, listen, if we do a treasury management workstation, this person is doing, I got 2 people working on balancing the cash in the morning to make sure all the accounts settle, right? So that's all happening. If I get the treasury management system, now I only need 1 person doing that. Now that 1 person that's not doing that anymore, I can free them up to work on this, which is going to generate, let's say it's optimizing cash balances among my entities for the day. Now I can actually better position my cash back when money was worth something, and I'm earning X dollars more, okay? And now, because of that, I think if I bring on this other person, we're managing the cash effectively, now we can look at the debt side and make sure that we're not over borrowing, and that would be worth this. I think telling that whole story and putting it together in a succinct way, Excel sheet, 2-page PowerPoint presentation with the ROI attached to it with accountabilities, that's my recommendation on the way to go.
So what I hear you saying, Frank, though, is it's critically important to partner yourself with a good recruiter that knows and understands Treasury Talent, so that when you're adding Treasury Talent to your team, you're getting the top talent.
Absolutely. Especially a guy with an Australian accent. You want him, Mark.
Frank, and I'm not even on the script like I told you, but just listening, this has been, very valuable. Can you give an example or a story, kind of going back into the dashboard and the expectations, presenting that to the CEO, and like, what are the results and the outcome, of a specific experience around that, of sharing, like you're saying, your good success and what good looks like for you guys?
Yeah, no, I mean, we've had the opportunity to work on, things like improving working capital management, right? I mean, you'd be surprised, especially at an insurance company, you have a lot of payments going in and out. you can leak money pretty easily, right? So, you know, I have a team, and I can't even take credit for it because the team did an incredible job. But we sat down, we figured out, you know, where's money leaking out? Where are we paying too quickly? Where are we receiving late? And put together a really good presentation. And we said, by doing these things, you know, sometimes the company doesn't want to take those actions. They may be too aggressive, right? But you lay everything out on the table. So we did, and we said, okay, how far do we want to go in the pendulum? And then you kind of get that organizational consensus. You know, right here's the sweet spot. And we've done that, and we're actually working on that now, but we made a lot of progress. And, you know, the opportunity was that, you know, the CFO wanted them that as part of our meetings, you know, presented it to the board. You know, so that's kind of the value add, is when you really focus on that and you can quantify it. I had good experience working on the working capital.
And can I just ask, for those out there that perhaps don't have, you know, you mentioned that if you don't measure it, you don't track it, or sort of whatever that was. If you've got a controller that's more the control, sorry, that CFO that's more the controller mindset, and you're perhaps not tracking things as well as you would want, what's your recommendation for people to be able to track more and get more attention from the CFO?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think, you know, I would say if your CFO is not asking, he probably won't, if that example, won't ask you for a dashboard, right? So one of the things that I usually do is I'm going to send my dashboard once a month, whether the CFO is asking for it or not. And I'm going to put that on, you know, out there. If he's not asking for it, he doesn't like to see it, he doesn't have to look at it, right? But at least it's there. But you want to know why I think it's critical is, one, you're putting it out there once a month, so they know that at least you're tracking it, right? But then at the end of the year, when you're doing your review, and most organizations that I've worked at, if you're in a smaller organization, you probably don't, but we have to do a self-assessment. Your self-assessment's done. You've been tracking it on a monthly basis and been telling your boss about the value you've been bringing to the table, right? So now when you do your self-assessment, then you can put it all there. I think that level of commitment and tracking is what gets noticed, because now, even if they're ignoring your email when you send the dashboard once a month, they can't ignore it when you put it on your self-assessment, because now, listen, I'm communicating constantly. Every month you're seeing exactly what we're working on. So, you know, and then at your review, that's the opportunity to talk about it.
Not only are you communicating the value add there, or doing your own self-assessment, but that facilitates conversations with your team throughout the course of the year. So now all of a sudden you're not scrambling during review time at the end of the year for them too. You're having those real-time coaching conversations about what needs to be adjusted or what needs to be fixed, what could be done better, whatever it is. I mean, you're speaking music to my ears right now.
We're getting some good feedback on the comments in here too, Frank. People liking what you had to say about the headcount and efficiency, and Gino just said great point, what you just said right there. So I just want to give you that feedback.
No, thanks. It's great. And I appreciate everybody listening. And, you know, I definitely look forward to hearing the comments. I would say that I think that's critically important if you think about the review process. I always say, when we're doing the year-end review and anything that's on there is a surprise, then as a manager, I didn't do a good job, right? So I think when you have those dashboards and you're sending that out there on a monthly basis, that's part of the communication. Now, I don't think all communication needs to be written, but, you know, that's a good start. And then when you're in meetings, you know, a lot of times, like in my meetings, we have like going around the table. Who has something that's going up? I'm there with the controller, the VP of internal audit, you know, the chief actuary, everyone. And, you know, I use that as my opportunity. Hey, we're working on this. And you know what? People around the organization appreciate it. You know, old expression, right? The squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? If you're not squeaking and talking about all the great things your team's doing, nobody's listening. And everyone in corporate America today is all about saying how great they are. Now, I'm not telling everybody to walk around and say that you're the greatest thing in the world, right? But there is a way that you can communicate in a very professional manner and talk about good achievements that are adding value to the company. And I think that's the balance that you want to walk. Don't just assume everybody knows what you're doing, because I guarantee you they don't, because they don't have the time.
And that's also it's not the natural state of a lot of treasurers, is it? Like, you know, they tend to be people who don't want to, you know, put their hand up and say how well they're doing. So I think that's really good advice, Frank.
Yeah, I got a question in here too. It says, you know, how do you best manage the manager during that kind of honeymoon period? You know, what can a new hire do to lay the groundwork for an effective relationship with the leader?
Yeah, you know, I always say it's really tough, or everyone's different. So some of the things that I do is, when I'm working with, especially if it's a new manager that you're reporting to, and you have a conversation and you think you walk out of a meeting with, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z, right? I always repeat back what I heard. So if I have a new boss to say, okay, I think you said I need to do this, this, that. And then I would say, I think you want this by this date, this by that date, and that by that date. This way, because you might get some, hey, can you work on this? And they need it tomorrow and you're thinking they need it next week. So having that focus on the deadline, I think builds some goodwill. And then following up after you deliver it. I sent that to you last week. Was that what you wanted? Is there anything you want different? Looking for that proactive feedback shows that you really care and you value that feedback and you want to go above and beyond how they want to see it. So I think building that rapport is really critical, and I think that helps better relationships. I mean, at the end of the day, your boss is, that's your customer, right? So you want to make sure your customer service is impeccable. So just using some of those customer service skills of how did I do? Trying to deliver 110%, I think goes a long way.
Excellent feedback.
Can I build off of that and saying that your team is also your customers too, because you got to retain them and you got to keep them happy? I mean, that's kind of how I look at it, man.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I would tell you from team management, finding really good people is really tough. That's why we need you guys, right? But retaining them is even tougher because, if somebody's really good, people in the industry know about it, and then people move around. And let's face it, if you have somebody that you work with at your last, let's say I take a new job, right? And then that person's really good. Well, I'm going to want to steal them away, right? And that happens all the time. So, I think a couple of things you need to do there is making sure the team's happy, but also making sure you're presenting challenges and opportunities. Because most people, if you have a good team, they're not happy staying at their current position. They want to go to the next level. The people that are there are people that want to stay at the same level and they're happy doing what they do and they don't really want to go anywhere for whatever reason. And that's fine, but you can't have your entire team like that, right? You need a lot of people on your team, a good portion of your team that are trying to get to the next level. So I always say career development is important. If you don't have your CTP, you should be going for your CTP, right? If you have your CTP and you're going to do a treasury analytics function, maybe you want to think about going for your FP&A or your CFA if you're going to derivatives or whatever your function is, getting that credentialing as part of the growth plan and, pushing people. So when somebody comes in the review, yeah, you feel engaged because we laid out a career plan that if you do this, I'm going to commit to getting you this promotion, right? But then your responsibility as the manager is you got to deliver on it because there's nothing worse. We've all had the manager, your promotion's coming, and it never comes. And that's when people leave. And if they don't leave, they're just not motivated. And that's actually worse than them leaving. So, I mean, that's an important part.
I think you're spot on there, Frank. And I think you can get yourself known as a really good manager that people want to work for because you get the people from point A to that promotion, or you give them the skills that they can go to their next role and get that next level. I think that type of a manager also attracts people and retains people better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, I'm always learning, and as a manager, I can always get better. But I think those are some of the observations. I think what makes you better is working for people that you see their flaws, right? You kind of learn from them. You say, I don't want to do that, right? So I have my flaws, and I look for my team to provide me that. One of my direct reports, he's good. He'll call me out, and that's good. I like that. But you need that as a leader. You need to facilitate that. If you don't want that feedback from your directs, they're not going to feel comfortable giving it to you. And but I think that's part of the development process.
Excellent. And as we kind of wrap this thing up here, Frank, I mean, just kind of, if you could share, like, you've obviously had a lot of success in your treasury career, and you're at a great point in your career with where you're at right now. Could you give a little bit of advice on, or one kind of tip on, what you think people should be doing if they're looking to advance their treasury career?
Yeah, I think a couple of things I've learned, real quick is, the path you think you're going to take is not the one you're going to take, right? So if you feel like you got to go on that path, you're not going to be successful. Because if you would have asked me when I was working in banking, I was going to stay in banking for the rest of my life. I was never going to leave, right? Then I got a call from PwC of all places. And then I wound up in health. I never thought I'd work for a health insurance company in a million years, right? But it provided so many great opportunities. So I think what you need to figure out is, what do you really like doing? okay?
Mhm.
And then be flexible with the opportunities that life gives you. They may not be your traditional career path, but be flexible. Say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do what I really like to do, but I may not be doing it at the type of company I thought I'd do it at. So be flexible, but have a career path. So it's okay if you zag, as long as the broad path is there. And then also, I think it's really important to figure out if my goal is, if I want to be the CFO one day, what do I need to have to be a CFO? Do I need an MBA? Do I need a CPA, CFA, whatever it may be, right? Do I need X amount of experience? Or maybe I have too much treasury experience. Maybe I need to figure out how to get that accounting experience, whatever it is to round me out. But I think that's the other part, is figure out what you're missing today so that you can figure out, when you're out of work, what you can build on.
Yeah, that's excellent advice, excellent feedback. Thank you so much. I'm not going to ask you gentlemen anything, because we're just going to create a cluster. But I wanted to kind of wrap up. Frank, thank you so much again for being here and just bringing so much value to the table. And I wanted to also just take the time to make everybody aware that we do have our Treasury Talent Networking and Career Sessions next week, August 10th through the 13th. So this is an incredible event. We've got Colleen Ostrowski from where she went from, Simon, from Visa will be speaking. Yang Zhu will be speaking. Joel Vanderkoy and Stephen Kaufman will be presenting at the event. But one of the key takeaways of the event is our ability. We've got some really, really great software we've been talking about with this event for us to be able to break off and do some networking. And I know as we were describing that to Frank earlier, he was really excited about that opportunity, to where not only will you be able to come to this event, but you'll actually be able to interact and network with like-minded folks using the technology. So I'm going to drop a link to register for the event in this here, and also to keep an eye out for the link to register, in the Facebook group, as well as on our LinkedIn channels as well. But again, Frank, thank you for being here with us. The rest of you Treasury Talent community, we will be back next Wednesday at the same time. Scotty, at the same channel.
No.
Next Wednesday.
We have a networking event, man.
We won't be here. We'll be at the event. So we'll be back the following Wednesday.
We'll see you all at the virtual event that we're hosting next week. But
there we go.
There you go. I blew that. So yeah, there is no event. There is no next Wednesday because of the event. So yeah, we'll see you all there. But thank you everyone for joining us again, and we'll talk to you all real soon.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.